Hi everyone, and welcome to the Golden Preserve for Biological Diversity. So my name's Ian Ableson. I'm the Stewardship Manager for Six Rivers Land Conservancy. We're a 5-county land conservancy in southeast Michigan. We help protect natural land in Oakland, Macomb, Genesee, Lapeer, and St. Clair counties. So this is intended to be the first in a series of short videos just about various natural science topics that pertain to southeast Michigan. I hope you enjoy these. We're hoping that you'll both find them informative and hopefully also that they'll encourage you to get outside and explore our wonderful natural areas in southeast Michigan. We've got a wonderful set of park systems. We've got great preserves that are protected by land conservancies like us, and there are other natural areas too, sort of scattered throughout this region. So I'm going to start today with a subject that's very near and dear to my heart. This is a bat house. So there's a good chance you've seen bat houses. They've gotten pretty popular in this region. Bat houses are a great thing to have around because they attract bats. Bats will happily move into and live in these bat houses, and that's really useful for us in southeast Michigan because our bats in Michigan are all insect eaters. They're all insectivores. They eat various insects that are either going to bother us, or even worse, they eat the insects that are crop pests. So it's estimated in the United States that the bats save our U.S. farmers somewhere in between $7 billion and up to $53 billion just in the extra pesticides that they'd have to use if the bats weren't around. So it's really important that we have the bats around, and the bat houses are one way that we can mitigate the effects on the bats from habitat loss. A lot of the areas that the bats would otherwise be living in, old dead trees and such, have been cut down in recent years, but we can put up bat houses to give the bats an alternative. So, first thing first, let's look at the structure of this bat house. So this is a pretty average bat house. It's designed for around 100 bats. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get 100 bats in it if you put this bat house up, but it's at least an option. So, first of all, this bat house has a really narrow opening, and that's really important. If you put up a bat house with a really wide opening, then all the predators that are going to go after bats, things like the raccoons and the foxes, are going to be able to get in there and get at the bats. Whereas a bat house that has a really small entrance like this, the bats will be fine getting in there because they're only about a couple inches in body length and maybe up to 6 inches in wingspan, but those predators can't get up there and get at them. There's also a slot right here. It's not a solid box. This slot is for ventilation to help airflow, just so that the bats are able to breathe. It's a solid back so that you could put either nails or screws or something up the top here and put it up wherever you're going to put it. And lastly, this bat house is actually unfinished. So ideally there would be a piece of mesh right here on the back of the bat house that allows the bats something to latch onto and climb up to get into the house. So that mesh can be easily purchased at something like Home Depot. It's not too complicated to find. This bat house just doesn't happen to have it on it. There are also bat houses that just have grooves cut into the wood. That works too. The bats can climb up that as well. Now, in terms of placement, these bat houses do have to be up pretty high. So ideally, you want a bat house to be about 12 to 15 feet off the ground at minimum. It can go higher, but lower is kind of an issue because in order to get out of a bat house like this, the bats have to drop and then fly away. And if it's any lower, they risk hitting the ground before their wings can make them fly further. And on top of that, a lot of the bats that are living in these bat houses are going to be mother bats raising babies. And so the babies and the young bats aren't nearly as good at flying as the adults are, so they kind of need a little extra space underneath. So 12 to 15 feet off the ground. On top of that, because of the reason that you have to put the bat house 12 to 15 feet off the ground, you also want to make sure that there isn't any tall vegetation under the opening. Again, if there's tall vegetation, they just can't drop out of the bat house really well and be able to fly. Now, as for what to actually put the bat house on, there's a lot of variety in what people will do. A lot of the times the easiest thing is just to put the bat house on its own individual pole. Some of the most successful bat houses that we see are just on a pole in the middle of a farm field, or a suburb, or a clearing, somewhere like that, where there's plenty of sunlight beating down on the bat house, there's plenty of room for the bats to fly, and ideally there's prey somewhere nearby that they'll be able to find. So if you don't have a pole that you can put the bat house on, sometimes an old dead tree, preferably standing kind of off on its own, that'll often work too. So we don't recommend a live tree for a couple of reasons. First of all, live trees have a lot of overhanging branches. So those branches will shade the bat house a little bit. And that's not necessarily great for bats that are living in a bat house in Michigan. They want as much sunlight and as much warmth as possible to keep that bat house super, super warm. Especially because a lot of the bats that might be moving into this bat house are mothers with their babies, and they want to keep the babies warm in those big maternity colonies of up to 100 bats. And lastly, you can see this bat house has been painted a dark blue color. A lot of folks in Michigan will paint their bat houses a dark color again, just as a way to try and keep it a little bit warmer for the bats. If you were putting up a bat house down south, you might hear people say to paint it white because you don't want it to get too hot for the bats. So lastly, in terms of what you're actually going to get in a bat house like this, a lot of the times in this region you're going to get maternity colonies of big brown bats. So big brown bats are the most common species of bat in this part of southeast Michigan, and they are a species that will live together in a colony like that. Other species of bats either live individually. Things like the red bats typically live individually on trees, so you're not likely to get them in a bat house. Or else, again, kind of like the red bats, they're just not interested in this sort of cavity for their living, so most likely you're going to get big brown bats. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed our short video on bat houses here. If you have any interest in our organization, please consider visiting our website at sixriversrlc.org. And if you want to help support our mission, you can find a donation link on that website. Thanks very much. We plan on doing a series of these videos, so if you have a suggestion for the next video, feel free to put that in the comments. Thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and take care.